Hello, Bible lovers. Welcome to another fun Bible study. This time around, we're going to look at the death of Moses. If you understand the death of Moses, you'll understand Jesus. And so here we have a picture of Moses looking out and over the promised land. And Deuteronomy tells us, "Then Moses climbed Mount Nebo, and the Lord said to him, 'This is the land I promised on oath to Abraham. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over into it.' And Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in Moab, as the Lord had said." So what terrible thing did the great lawgiver do? We can read the very brief description in the book of Numbers. In the first month, the whole congregation of Israel entered the wilderness of Zin and stayed in Kadesh. Now there was no water for the congregation, so they gathered against Moses and Aaron. Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting. They fell face down, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord said to Moses, "Take the staff and assemble the congregation. You and your brother Aaron are to speak to the rock while they watch, and it will pour out its water. You will bring out water from the rock and provide drink for the congregation and their livestock." So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence, just as he had commanded. Then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, "Listen now, you rebels. Must we bring you water out of this rock?" Then Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with his staff, so that a great amount of water gushed out, and the congregation and their livestock were able to drink. The Lord then said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust me to show my holiness in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this assembly into the land I have given them." Now there are a few problems with the story, so let's go over it. It said, in the first month, the whole congregation of Israel entered the wilderness of Zin. Okay, so they're entering a wilderness. And how many people? It's estimated there's like tens of thousands. Some people even claim like 2 million people. So 2 million people have just had that battering experience in coming from Egypt and marching around. And again, they have children, they have livestock, they have their own lives to worry about, and they're in a wilderness. Of course they're concerned that there is no water. It doesn't say there's not enough water. It says the whole congregation has entered a wilderness with no water. Of course they're concerned. And then Moses and Aaron, of course, go into the tent of meeting. And what does it say? It says that they did exactly what the Lord told them to do. Okay, and so then they go to the rock, and it says, "Must we bring water out of this rock?" And like there's a lot of confusion about what was so offensive. And a lot of people think it's just the fact that he said, "We," instead of "the Lord bring you water out of this rock." That he took a little tiny bit of glory for himself. But remember, he had a whole crowd of 2 million people yelling at him. And he's an old man. He's been complaining all his life that he isn't up for the job, and so God should give it to someone else. But no. And because he got a little rattled and said "we" instead of attributing everything to the Lord, he doesn't get allowed to enter the promised land. If that's enough to bump you out, again, what hope does anyone else have? if Moses isn't good enough for God because he had a little off afternoon in a very stressful situation, what hope does anyone else have? But mostly it's this ungrateful, hard to please God that calls people rebels because they're worried about their children and their livestock and their own damn lives. They're out in a wilderness marching around. Uh, so that is what the first thing you need to learn from the death of Moses. But that brings us up to the New Testament. What does the New Testament tell us? So, of course, the central character of the New Testament is Jesus. And Jesus took one look at the whole Moses thing and came up with a different way of looking at it. In everything, then, do to others as you would have them do to you. For this is the essence of the law and the prophets. What? The essence of the law and the prophets. And therein is, well, it's the essence of what's supposed to be the central teaching of Christianity. It certainly was Jesus' central teaching. Look at what it says. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. The prophets are there just to scold the nation and beg them to repent and make excuses for God. And the same God of Moses is the same one that punished them with the Egyptians and the invasion of the Assyrians and the invasion of the Babylonians and then the invasion of the Persians and then the invasion of the Greeks and finally the invasion of the Romans in Jesus' time. Those were all punishments, supposedly, according to the prophets, by that same peevish God of Moses, the God of the burning bush. And Jesus is really suggesting, why don't we sidestep all that? And we just go to, again, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, which is rather abstract, but it gets put into the concrete with the second commandment, which is love your neighbor as yourself. How we treat each other is what it all depends on. So let's just treat each other well and forget the law. And then if we forget the law, we don't even need the scolding of the prophets because we'll be fulfilling it. And if it's fulfilled, well then Jesus actually advocates all that dietary stuff, and all that's still perfectly acceptable. His disciples were practicing that long after his death, and they were practicing all the ritual stuff to get them into the temple. They were still visiting the temple. They were doing all the technical Jewish stuff, all the technical law stuff, but they weren't doing the actual law. They were substituting the entire law and the entire angry God stuff with, well, like I say, the first commandment's abstract. You don't know if you're loving God with your whole heart, your whole soul, your whole mind. You just do the best you can. It's abstract. And maybe you'll be much more loving now, or a year from now than you are now. You just don't realize it. You haven't reached your potential. You never do. It's abstract. But the second one is concrete, how we treat each other. And of course, he was referring to things like feeding the hungry, visiting the sick, visiting those in prison, welcoming the stranger, all that concrete stuff. That's what he says is important. And again, sidestepping the law, sidestepping the crazy, angry God of the burning bush, Moses, and it was a welcome message, to say the least. That's why tens of thousands of people would be interested. That's why he could walk into the temple and start knocking over the money changers. There's like 600 guards at the disposal of the temple, and probably there were a whole bunch of them around the money changers especially. Why else would you have guards? But he managed to go in there, and it says turn over the tables. Why? Because he probably had a couple of thousand cheering people behind him. That courtyard could actually fit thousands of people. And so he could do that. And so the temple guards would protect the money changers and just get them out of there. They wouldn't oppose such a person. That's how popular. That's how you can tell that Jesus was actually popular with the people at the time. There's a few other clues hidden in the Bible. Anyway, yeah, the whole idea is to get away from the God of the burning bush. But of course, this isn't the message of Christianity. Christians want to put that law right back in front of our courthouse and all that other stuff. They want to drag in the law. That's because there's a big divide between Christianity and the teachings of Jesus that are kind of snuck in the Bible along with a bunch of like crazy nonsense. But it's fun to dig through if you know what you're looking for, and I hope I made you a little smarter. Basically, Jesus was teaching the God of Abraham and the God of Noah, and he was only using the quotations from the law to neutralize the law, essentially. Just remember, as you study the Bible, Moses wasn't good enough for God. Jesus ended up crucified in the prime of his life. The only person that was ever happy in the Bible was Solomon. And he went apostate at the end of his life. And he was supposed to be the wisest person on earth. So anyway, Bible lovers, tread lightly, tread lightly. I hope I made you a little smarter with this fun Bible study. Thanks for watching.